The organizers for such a big meeting. I did not expect so many people, so I'm rather impressed. The goal of my talk will be to give you an introduction to mean-field games and to the numerical methods related to PDEs and mean-field games. It will be a very introductory material, so for the experts, maybe it will not be so interesting. But the talk is addressed to people who basically don't know anything on mean-field games. So the mean-field game theory dates back, so this is the abbreviation for mean-field games. The mean-field game theory is quite new. It started 10 years ago. The first papers were by Lasry and Lyons in 2006. And since then, there has been a great research effort on mean-field games. And I guess the community on mean-field games grows and grows, and the topic becomes studied by many communities: probability, PDEs, calculus of variations, and numerics. So it's a topic which is quite which you can address from many points of view. So the main idea is the main idea in mean-field games is to consider games with a large number of agents, so stochastic games. With n agents, so it will be differential games, and it will be described by Nash equilibrium. And the assumption is that when n grows large, so n will tend to infinity, the influence of a single agent on the game will become more negligible. So as n tend to infinity, the influence of a single agent becomes negligible. And also, another assumption is that all the agents are identical. So, okay. So the idea of Lasry and Lyons was to pass to the limit when the number of agents tend to infinity, and at the limit, the idea is that at the limit, a single agent will feel the presence of the other agents will feel the other agent via a statistical distribution of states. So via the statistical distribution of states. Statistical which I call M. So M is a probability measure on the state space. And so the agent looks at M, and if M is given, a single agent has to solve an optimal control problem. So given M, the representative agent solves an optimal control problem, a stochastic optimal control problem by dynamic programming. Optimal control problem. So it will be standard control, stochastic control. And once this problem is solved, you have an optimal feedback law. And once the optimal feedback law is found, the statistical distribution will evolve according to this optimal control. So the optimal control M will evolve via a transport equation called the Fokker-Planck equation, knowing the optimal. So you have a sort of loop. You given M, you find the optimal control. And given the optimal control, you have an equation for M. So this is an equilibrium. And I will be more precise now. I will explain you on an example what the equilibrium is. And this is the main idea of mean field games. So are there any questions at this point? So if not, I will give you a more precise example. So a simple example. So I will not discuss today the passage to the limit when n tends to infinity, because it's a long story, and the expert is François actually. So if you have questions, you can ask François Delarue about it. So I will only deal with the limit problem. So in the simple example, the state space will be Rd. So and the dynamic of a representative agent, it will be a stochastic differential equation. So it will be something like that. dxt equals gamma t dt plus sigma dwt. So xt belongs to Rd. Wt is a Brownian motion. So this is the noise which affects the dynamics of the player, the representative player, and will in this talk and in all the lectures I will do, I will suppose that each player has an independent Brownian as an independent source of noise. So if you take the different players, all the players have an independent source of noise, which is a Brownian motion. This is important because if it's not the case, if the noise are correlated, then the situation becomes more complicated, and I will not tackle this. Gamma t is the control. So gamma t, so it's a Brownian motion in Rd, of course. Gamma t is the control, so it's a stochastic process adapted to Wt. the filtration of WT. Sigma is the volatility, so it's a positive or it can also be 0. It's a positive number or 0. Gamma T also lives in RD. Okay. Okay. Okay, and in all what follows, I will make an assumption to simplify the situation. I will suppose that all the functions I will deal with will be periodic in the state variable. All the functions of the state variable, so the state variable is x, are periodic. So the period can be 1 if you want in all directions. So I will work in the torus RD. So I will work in the flat torus. Why do I do that? Because I don't want to deal with the behavior at infinity, for example, of some functions, or I don't want to deal with boundary conditions. So this is a convenient way to avoid difficulties. Okay, and once I have said that, I recall that MT is the density, is the distribution of states. Of states at time t, at t. So this means that if you look at the expectation of a function phi of xt, then it will be the integral over the flat torus of phi of x dmt of x. Okay? So I will need that because the cost of a given agent, so each agent will have to minimize the cost, and the cost will depend on the statistical distribution of states, because each agent interact with the other through these distributions of states. And so let me introduce the optimal control, which is solved by the representative agent. So the representative agent will minimize at each time the following cost. The cost will be the expectation of an integral between t and capital T of some running cost. So the running cost, I will suppose that it depends separately on the control gamma and on the distribution of states MT. So I take for the cost something like that. So this is the part which depends on gamma, plus some f which depends on mt and of x at time t. So I will explain the notation very soon. So this is the running cost, because I integrate this on time. So this is the running cost. And then I have a terminal cost, so I should write it something like g of m at time capital T of x at time capital T. So capital T is the horizon of my so maybe I forgot something, and this is a condition to the fact that xt equals x at time t. So close. Okay, so this is the terminal cost. And now I have to explain what all the ingredients are. So you see the roles of MT and gamma are separated in the running cost. I already said that. And now I explain the ingredients. So L, for example. So L is called a Lagrangian, and it will be a function. So L will be a function from omega times Rd to R. I will suppose that it's regular, for example, C1. I will suppose also that it's strictly convex for simplicity. I will ask that it's coercive in the following sense. The limit as gamma tends to infinity norm of the infimum over the states of L of x gamma divided by gamma is plus infinity. So this is this enables me to define an Hamiltonian. The Hamiltonian will be h of x and p. So h, it will map omega times Rd to R. And it will be defined as h of x and p equals the supremum over all gamma in Rd of minus p gamma minus L of x and gamma. So this will allow me to find an Hamilton-Jacobi for the value function. Let me call the value function. Let me call u. Let me call this u of t and x. I put a tilde. I will explain why. So this is the Hamiltonian. What are the assumptions on the Hamiltonian? I will also suppose that it's C1 at least. C1. I will take a very restrictive assumptions, but it's only it's mainly for simplicity. Of course, the Hamiltonian is convex because it's a Legendre transform of L, so it's convex. And I will also suppose that it's coercive. So, for example, the limit, the same kind of behavior for the Hamiltonian. So h of x and p divided by p tends to infinity at infinity. Okay. So this is for the Hamiltonian. Of course, you have since L is convex, you have a reverse formula which tells you that L is the supremum over minus p gamma minus h of x and p over all the p's. So this is the assumption for the Hamiltonian. So now I have to give you some assumptions on F and M. I can do. No, sorry. Yes. So what about f and m? F, I can make several kinds of assumptions, but the easiest one is to suppose that f, it maps a probability measure or a bounded measure, so I call it P on omega. So this is the probability measures. Let me take bounded measures. So I don't know if it's a standard notation. So these are bounded measures. It will map bounded measures to smooth functions defined on omega. So this means that for all m, a measure, f of m is a smooth function in omega, and I will suppose that this map is continuous. So when I endow this space with, for example, Rubinstein-Kantorovich distance. So I suppose that this map is continuous. And maybe I will need some more assumptions. For example, that f maps functions in C k alpha to C k plus 1 alpha. So it's a smoothing operator. So it's a smoothing non-local operator. Smoothing non-local operator. So, for example, you take a function example. You take a function f continuous, and you convert it with some kernel, smoothing kernel, and you take, for example, something like that. So you take two convolution. This one to and I forgot the x, so x is here. Okay. So of course this takes a measure, it regularizes it, then you can apply a function, and you can even regularize the function. So you have something very smooth. Of course, this is a simplifying example, and you can take other kind of assumptions. So alternatively, but it's more difficult to do the analysis, you can take f to be a local, to have a local dependency with respect to m, if m has a density. So you will have something like that. So here m of x is the density of m at point x, and f is, for example, a C1 function. F C1. So this is more difficult. So this is what people in MFG theory called local coupling, a local coupling. Coupling cost. For G, the terminal cost, we make the same assumption as for F. So for G, same assumptions. Okay? So this is a picture. So I think I have introduced all the ingredients. And now I can tackle the optimal control problem, which is solved by any representative agent. So the optimal control problem, I will state a very well-known result. So if I perform dynamic programming, then I have to solve an Hamilton-Jacobi-Bellman equation, And I will suppose that the solution of this Bellman equation is smooth. So assume that there is a classical solution which I call u. U will be a function from 0t to times omega to r. So I assume that there is a classical solution of the following problem, of the PDE problem, which I write now. So the PDE problem will couple a PDE and a boundary condition. So let me first write the PDE. The PDE will be a Bellman equation. So I write the Bellman equation and then I explain. There is the Hamiltonian x of du. So all this is taken at t and x, of course. And so maybe I write it. Is equal to f of m t of x. So I suppose that m is given. And I solve this Bellman equation. So this is for all t. So this is a backward in time equation because the agent will anticipate the future. You see that it's backward in time because you have this minus in front of the time derivative. So the time belongs to 0 capital T open, and x belongs to omega. I have no problem with boundary conditions because I suppose that U is periodic. So I work in the torus. And I have to associate this equation with the terminal condition. The terminal condition will be that U at time capital T of x is, or I can write it U of T of n x, is G of m at time t of x. And this is for all x belonging to omega. So you see this is, so I call this problem 1 and 2. So this is a Bellman equation. So 1 is a Bellman equation. It is backward in time. Okay. And if there is a classical solution, so I assume that there is a classical solution, then in fact we have that U tilde, then U tilde, which is written on the blackboard here on the upper blackboard. Then U tilde of T and X matches U and T of X. So U tilde is U. And the optimal control is given by an optimal feedback. So, if I define the optimal feedback gamma star from 0t times omega to RD, gamma star will be the gamma star of T and X is the minus the derivative of h with respect to p, second variable. So it's a vector of Rd of t and x, of t of x, and du t and x. So this belongs to Rd. So if I define this optimal feedback law, then the optimal control is given by gamma star t equals gamma star of t and xt gives an optimal control. So you have found an optimal feedback law, which is given by this relation. Okay? Are there any questions at this point? So I have solved this. I suppose I know M. I solve this Bellman equation and I find the optimal feedback. Now the second step is that I will transport the measure M by the optimal control. So maybe I write it here. So evolution of M you know that if this is the velocity, if you want, in the state space of the optimal control, let's say, and you know that if the statistical distribution will be transported by the optimal control, and it solves a diffusion equation. I write it. So the equation for M is dt. So M will have a density which I write M of t and x. And the equation for the density will be the Fokker-Planck equation, which I write now, minus dt plus dt m minus nu Laplace. I realize I forgot to say what is nu. So nu is a sigma squared divided by 2. Sorry for that. So the evolution of M is given by this equation plus the divergence of M gamma star of t and x equals 0. So I can rewrite it as dtm minus nu Laplacian of M minus divergence of M dh over dp of x gradient u of t and x equals 0. So this is for all t greater than 0 and less than the horizon and x belonging to omega. And you have to couple this equation with a boundary condition, but this is a forward equation. So the boundary condition will be at time 0, and the boundary condition will be some kind of Dirichlet condition, which tells me that at time 0, I know the density of the distribution of state. The distribution of state is known and is given by this. So this is a data. So this is the initial distribution of states. So I put some numbers. So this is 3 and 4. And this equation is a Fokker-Planck equation. It's backward. It's forward. Sorry. It's forward. So you see that we have a system of two coupled PDEs. One is forward, one is backward. And this is what we call the MFG system of equations. So the system of PDE, the system of the MFG in field games is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? And you see there are couplings everywhere. For example, U is coupled to M here in this equation. You have also coupling at the terminal condition for U, and you have a coupling in this transport term for M. So you have couplings everywhere. You have one forward and one backward equation. And what I want to say is to give you some remarks. So if you want to know how to find the Fokker-Planck equation from the Bellman equation, what you do is if you differentiate one with respect to U, so you find an equation which is something like that, minus dtv. V is plays the same role as you, except that you differentiate the equation minus Laplacian of v plus hp x du dv equals 0. So I differentiated this equation with respect to u. And now if I take the adjoint, equation and apply it to m. So the adjoint of this term is dtm. The adjoint of this term is minus Laplacian of m. And the adjoint of this, you have to integrate by part. You multiply by m and you integrate by part, and you find minus divergence of m hp x gradient u. So hp means dh over dp. So you find exactly the Fokker-Planck equation. So as exercises, what you can do if you want is to recover the, prove that at least formally that if you have a classical solution to this equation, it gives you the value function and an optimal feedback. So you can do that by Ito formulas, basically, at least at a formal level. And for that, you can obtain the Fokker-Planck equation as an exercise, if you want, by taking the definition of the statistical distribution, which is written at the top of the blackboard over there. The expectation of phi at xt of xt is phi, the integral of phi dm. And with this definition, you can find easily this equation from this definition. So you can do that as exercises. So the last thing I wanted to say at this very general level is that there is a striking fact. The striking fact is that you have uniqueness for MFG with very reasonable assumptions under reasonable assumptions. So the assumption will be some monotonicity assumption on F, capital F and G. So the assumptions will be if you take two measures, M and M tilde, and you look at the integral over omega of f of m taken at x minus f of m tilde taken at x, and you integrate that against the measure m minus the measure m tilde. So you suppose that if you suppose that this is non-positive, then m has to be equals to m tilde. So this is a monotonicity assumption which tells you that so this is a monotonicity assumption. It tells you that the cost is higher in the zones where the density of states, if you want, or the distribution, the density of states is high. So this has the cost is higher where the density is higher. So this means that the agents don't want to be one on top of the other. And if you make the same assumption for G, same assumption for G. Okay, so under these two assumptions, you have uniqueness of a classical solution. So you don't know if there is at most a classical solution. I don't want to discuss existence because existence relies on analytic tools which I don't want to tackle now. But I will explain you why we have uniqueness. So the idea is to prove this result. You take two solutions of the MFG system. So you take a U1 and U2 and M1 and U2 M2, two solutions. And you call, for example, E, the difference between U1 and U2, the error, and Z, the difference between M1 and M2. And what you do is you take the equations, so you take the Bellman equation for U1, so you take the Bellman equation for U1, which I call HJB1. You take the Bellman equation for U2, which I call HJB2, you subtract, and you multiply this by what, in your opinion? Yes, you multiply it by Z, and for the Fokker-Planck, you do the same thing. You take the Fokker-Planck equation satisfied by M1 minus the Fokker-Planck equation satisfied by M2, and you multiply it by E. You integrate this over the cylinder. So the cylinder, I call it Q. So Q is 0T times omega. And you see what happens. So what happens? So there will be a sum of 4 terms. So I will write them. Maybe I write them in this on this blackboard. So if you do the job, you get an integral of the cylinder of minus dt E minus new Laplacian E times Z. Then you get minus dt Z minus new Laplacian Z E. So you see that there are most of the terms will cancel because when you integrate by part, these two guys cancel. Then you get what comes from the Bellman equation. So you get plus. Let me write it in a single at a single time. So I will have from the Bellman equation, I will have something like M1 times hx du1. Then I will have something which comes from the HJB2, so hx du2. And I will take something which comes from the Fokker-Planck equation, and it will be minus plus HP x du1 du2 minus du1. So I have taken some terms from the two equations, and I have the same term from inverting the roles of M1 and M2. So switching 1 and 2, so I will have hx du2 minus hx du1 plus HP x du2 du1 minus du2. So you do the algebra. You see you can find that, and then there are the terms which comes from the f terms. So there is something which is minus the integral over q of fm1 minus fm2 times dm1 minus dm2. So you see, now I have to transform this term because I will integrate. You see that I have I can integrate. I have the derivative of e times z, the time derivative of e times z, And if I integrate E times Z, this terms gives me minus the integral over omega of gm1 at time capital T minus gm2 at time capital T dm1 at time t minus dm2 at time t. So this term becomes this one. So you see, I have and this is 0 because this comes from the equations. So the sum of these four terms is 0. But you see, these terms have a sign because I suppose that G is monotone, so this term is non-positive. So this term is non-positive. This term is non-positive as well. There is a minus in front. And these terms, it is also non-positive because H is convex. So H is convex with respect to the second variable. So this term is non-positive. And this term is non-positive as well. So this is from convexity of H. Okay? So I have a sum of four non-positive terms which is 0. All the terms are 0. So in particular, you find that M1 matches M2. Remember, it's classical solutions, so you can do it. These are densities, and these are regular functions. And once you know that, you can plug that into the Bellman equation, and so by the uniqueness of the Bellman equation, uniqueness for the HGB equation, you get that U1 is equal to U2, and you get uniqueness. So you see that this is a strong asset of mean field games that under reasonable assumption on the economic point of view, if you want, you can recover uniqueness. Of course, you can have mean field games where this assumption is not satisfied, but you have a frame in which you can find uniqueness. So much for the analysis of the continuous mean field games problems, and now I will turn to finite differences and numerics for the MFG.
So short question. So about the M naught, so the initial data, the initial measure. So this is the distribution of the adjoint at initial time, correct?
Yes, this is the distribution. Yes, and it's assumed to be known. Okay,
and usually this is a measure with a density, something nice. Or?
You can make assumptions on it. You can suppose that it has a density. It can be smooth, but you could also take it as a non-regular measure.
Okay.
Sorry, a detailed question. So you have this less than 0, and how do you conclude that M1 is equal to M2?
M1 is equal to M2. It comes from the hypothesis. It comes from this hypothesis.
So the hypothesis is that integral of delta M negative implies M equals to M tilde?
So this means that, yes, so it means that in general it's non-negative.
Okay.
And if it's non-positive, then M1 has to match M2.
Thank you.
Any other questions?